What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome into the Sactown Sports Kings recap. Joining you after the Sacramento Kings upset, I guess you can call it an upset, the Los Angeles Clippers. I'm going to call it an upset. Uh, what was even the final score there? I sorry for actually doing this without having the final score ready to go. Uh, the Sacramento Kings get their first and foremost. The reason why I'm going to call it an upset is this Kings team has not performed well against the Clippers all year long. They've played them twice now and have gotten beat by 20 in both of those games. For them to officially come back and on the other side of the All-Star break, where last year they kind of ascended at this same exact time against this same exact team, for them to have this performance I think is reassuring and really refreshing to see. 123-107 is the final score at Crypto.com Arena, which will be the Clippers' final season in Crypto.com Arena. I've actually been watching some YouTube videos on the Clippers' new arena, the Intuit Dome, I think it's going to be called. Looks like it's going to be really awesome, and can't wait to beat the Clippers in that place as well. But we need to light the beam. There we go. Lighting the beam tonight. Wasn't expecting to, if I'm going to be honest. This was a really daunting matchup on paper. This Clippers team not only has beaten this Kings team like a drum all year long, but it's also just been a really good team really since December. They've been one of the best teams in the NBA. And it tonight, I don't really think showed them did them justice. I think this was only the fourth game this season they've played without Paul George, and I think they really missed his energy. I think Paul clearly is a great scorer, but you saw how Mike Brown was able to kind of really throw them off by double teaming Kawhi, and that's going to be what teams are going to do in the playoffs. If Paul George is going to be out, Kawhi Leonard's one Achilles heel, I guess, is that he's not a great playmaker. He has passing ability, but definitely not, the best part of his game. So you saw Mike Brown double team him a lot and force the Clippers into some really weird offense. James Harden was cold from three tonight. I think that definitely helped. The Clippers in general were cold from three, which we know has been a problem for this Kings team, to say the least, all year long. That was definitely the one glaring thing going into this matchup that you had to look at, was the fact that the Clippers were second in the NBA at 3-point field goal percentage, and the Kings, obviously, as we've talked about plenty of times, are the worst three-point defensive team in the NBA. So for the Kings to hold the Clippers to 29%, and yeah, I mentioned James Harden. He finished 2 of 10 from three. That was really the key for them to win tonight. I mean, obviously, if some of those shots go in, this game can go a whole lot different. The momentum can swing, and if you get James Harden in a rhythm, that's when he's at his most dangerous, because then you start to pay attention to him, and he can start finding his teammates just off of his gravity. But they did a great job of just forcing Kawhi Leonard into those doubles. Of course, Kawhi is a monster. He's still going to be able to hit things. The Clippers got to the free throw line a lot tonight. That kept them in the game for a while. But really, tonight was, in my opinion, I think the best defensive performance from this Kings team all year long. Again, the Clippers have been incredible all season, really. And not many people have been able to slow them down. I mean, they just have so many weapons, whether it be Norm Powell and obviously Kawhi and Paul George, but Russ off the bench. You saw Zubac have a real impact on Sabonis. Really, only in that first quarter, I guess for about a quarter and a half, Sabonis really struggled. I just heard him mention or joke around with Morgan and Mike Bibby on the broadcast about how many bunnies he missed today and why that allowed him to collect so many offensive rebounds. But in general, I just think the Kings did a great job. Obviously, De'Aaron's little moment he had defensively guarding James Harden and getting the steal was special. That's the kind of guy that can really take this team to levels that would surprise most of us. I think if De'Aaron Fox is going to be that caliber of player or be able to play like that in the playoffs, this team could be dangerous. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is a really, really good win. Probably the best win for Monty McNair to feel good about his decision to not really move much after the trade deadline or at the trade deadline. This is definitely proof of concept for what Monty said after the deadline, that this team has beaten a lot of really good playoff competition, and this is proof that this roster on its day is capable of doing that. And today was a real collective effort. Didn't think it was the greatest game from Keegan, but really he's the only one that you could really say didn't give quite what you would want. I think Malik ended up at the end of the game having a pretty important role in this one. Kevin Herter was just hitting shots consistently throughout the duration of the game. Harrison Barnes had a fantastic game tonight. We'll talk about him later. That's a little sneak peek. Domas obviously kind of just kept at it, was incredibly persistent, had a triple double by the third quarter, and then De'Aaron Fox, of course, just kind of took them about as far as they could go today. He set the tone in that fourth quarter, but really just consistently all game had an impact. He finished with 3 steals, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. Did have 3 turnovers for sure, and I think there were some sloppier moments in this game, but overall, when you're playing a high quality team like the Clippers, you're going to have turnovers. You're going to have some mistakes. Guys are going to make some shots. It's about how you respond. And, today they just really had their foot on their necks for a lot of this game. I thought the Kings were just the better team today, flat out. They played better. They wanted it more. They played more desperate. Their defense was locked in for 3 quarters. And the Clippers, there was a couple times. I mean, I watched the ESPN broadcast. Go ahead and put in the comments. I'm actually really curious. How did you guys watch ESPN? Did you watch the NBC broadcast? Was not the biggest fan of the ESPN broadcast. I was watching that for about 2.5 quarters, and then just honestly got tired of Bob Myers and switched over to Kyle and Katie. But man, yeah. Can't remember why I brought that up, but yeah, I just thought it was a really good effort tonight from all the guys is where I think I was starting that rant at. Interesting. Yeah, I'm seeing for sure. Clippers weren't shooting well at all. That definitely helped, but at the same time, Clippers are the second best 3-point shooting team in the NBA, and the Kings have been the worst defensive 3-point shooting team, or in terms of defending at the 3-point line, they've been the worst. So, if the Clippers are shooting bad, you have to give the Kings credit. You have to give them at least some sort of credit. I would say that there were a couple different times. Davion sticks out to me one specific time. Malik did it a couple times, but it's and you'll hear coaches talk about this all the time. But it's good defense isn't just about flying out and making sure you contest the first shot, because a lot of times guys will pump fake. It's about the second effort, the third effort. And I noticed a couple different times Davion had that, De'Aaron had that, Malik had that. And that's when I say the Kings just kind of played like they wanted it more today. It was things like that. It was the fact that they got almost all the 50-50 balls that I can think. Maybe, of course, I just kind of noticed the Kings ones more, but it felt like they got a lot of those tipped balls that kind of, end up bouncing once and, multiple guys lunging for it. It felt like the Kings got multiple of those. When the ball hits the deck, it felt like the Kings were always the one to come up with it. Sometimes it's about, foul calls going your way. Sometimes it's about, tips out of bounds always seeming to be in your favor. And tonight it just kind of felt like a lot of the things were working in the Kings' favor and not a lot of things were working in the Clippers' favor. You got to take it. You got to take this win in the same way you got to take that Spurs win. There can't be any excuses. You can't say, oh, Paul George didn't play. Oh, the Clippers didn't hit their shots. Oh, the Spurs aren't a very good team. This point in the year, it's all about picking up dubs. And honestly, this win was huge because today the NBA was doing the Kings all the favors they could. Let me get the official standings. I don't know if they have it updated for the Kings yet for this Kings result, but I know the Suns lost today, or I'm sorry, the Suns won today. The Pelicans lost today. Obviously, the Clippers lose today. The Warriors lose today, and that helps the Kings in the standings. The Suns needed to lose today, and the Lakers, of course, did not hold up their end of the bargain. Let me see if the standings have been updated, and they have. And the Kings, your Sacramento Kings, are currently the 5th seed. They have climbed all the way up from, I think, did they start today in the 8th seed? I think they started today in the 8th seed. And with this win today, have climbed all the way up to number 5 in the Western Conference, a game ahead of the Suns, or I guess tied with the Suns and the Pelicans. Weird that, I guess the Kings technically have a better win percentage. So, yeah, the Kings are in 5th place right now for what that's worth. They play Miami tomorrow, who will not have Jimmy Butler and will not have Thomas Bryant for their involvement in a scuffle. It was something on Friday against the New Orleans Pelicans. Jimmy Butler kind of instigated a fight, and Thomas Bryant was part of the finishers of that fight. So Miami's not going to have either of those two guys tomorrow in Sacramento. So that'll be really interesting to see kind of how Miami adapts with that. Jimmy Butler was obviously a huge part in that Kings loss to Miami in Miami. What was that, about a month ago? So I feel like the Kings should be able to get it done. I know it's a back-to-back. I know they're flying from LA, probably taking off in about an hour here, hopefully getting in by midnight and being able to get a good night's sleep. Miami stayed the night. They are already here in Sacramento. So that's always, of course, a bit of a disadvantage, but you just hope that the Kings can pull it together and use the fact that Jimmy's not playing as kind of a launch pad to springboard them in the standings. And it's all about creating cushion. We've talked about this stretch that they have here for a bit now, where even after Miami, they have Denver on Wednesday and then Minnesota, both of those on the road on Friday. It's going to get tough. So if the Kings can keep beating these really quality opponents, not that the Spurs are one, but this is definitely a quality win here against the Clippers. If they can pick up a quality win against the number 3 seeded Denver Nuggets and then the number 1 seeded Minnesota Timberwolves, those are really, really quality. And you've got to feel good about your team heading into this stretch. If they're capable of winning those games all on the road, I think that you have to feel like realistically every single night you have a good shot to win. And that's including, games against the Bucks. That's including right now, especially I watched that Bucks Sixers game this morning. The Sixers are not the same threat without Joel Embiid. Newsflash, where they lose their MVP, they're not the same. So the Kings have to be able to take advantage against those guys, against teams like the Knicks, who they have to play. They still have games against the Celtics. And don't forget, I believe they have 1 or 2 more games still against the Phoenix Suns as well. So, this is a really important week just in terms of kind of getting a good gauge on what we can expect the rest of this way. Of course, the Kings started last season with winning 5 straight games outside of the All-Star break, or on the other side of the All-Star break. This is a good start with 2 wins. And again, the same exact way they started last year. Second game of the post All-Star break, taking down the Clippers. And this time, it was completely different. Obviously the 176-175 double overtime game was an offensive masterclass. There was some good defense in that game, but just shot making on both sides. This game was honestly, I'm telling you, the big takeaway is this Kings defense is taking a step up. Now, against the Spurs, there were moments. I think I said the third quarter was a good one for the Kings last game. This one, I thought the second quarter was honestly one of the best defensive quarters this team has played all season long. Might even be number 1. But I think if that's where this team is looking to kind of take the leap in this last stretch, it'll be interesting to see just how much improvement that makes, because that was always the conversation, right? Is if this team could just play average level defense and still be able to play the ridiculous style of offense they do, then what'll happen? Well, I think tonight was a really good example of what could potentially be those cases, because a lot of games last year, the Kings would score 123 points, but sometimes their opponents would score 125, 127, maybe even 130. But these kind of results didn't happen much last year. 123 to 107. That is you having multiple contributors. Harrison Barnes had a great night. Domas had a good night offensively, nothing spectacular. De'Aaron had a great night. Kevin Herter contributed. Even though I said earlier I didn't love what Keegan Murray gave, he still gave you something. Malik gave you moments. Even didn't I think Davion did he? I know he took a three. I can't remember if Davion hit it, but I thought Davion had a couple good moments. Chris Duarte continues to be a factor. Haven't gotten much out of Trey Lyles here recently, but the fact that you're getting all of those guys contributing, and you're defending at that level, I think is a really good step. And obviously a win against the Clippers, who is a team that you might face right now with a 4-5 matchup, is Clippers Kings. I know it's obviously going to move and probably be completely different by the time we're at the end of the season, but this is a team that you might have to play in the playoffs, and proof of concept is really, really good. Just to even have in your mind a visualization that doesn't have to be fake on what it looks like, what it feels like to beat these teams, especially on the road, especially when you're in their environment. I think that all that stuff is very real. And even if it doesn't overall, make the difference, I think it helps. I think it's just making that process a whole lot easier. So it was great to hear those like the beam chants out there in LA. I'm sure if the Kings Clippers were in a series, I'm pretty sure that arena would be at least 15% Kings fans. I think you would get a really good presence in the tenants of the what is it called, crypto.com arena. I feel like the Kings could make a pretty good showing. There's a decent bit of Kings fans down in Southern California just as transplants. And that's just not far enough of a drive to not make the excuse to drive down there for at least one of those games. So that would definitely be an interesting series. I would love to see it. Basketball wise, don't know if I would say I would love to see it. I think it would be a fun challenge for this team. I think, frankly, the Clippers don't have that different of a history than the Kings. Just a little bit more success here recently. But if you look at the totality of it, really, you could argue the Kings as a whole franchise, or from Rochester on, have definitely been more successful than what the Clippers have done. So I wouldn't say that it's out of line or out of the question that the Kings could possibly upset the Clippers in a playoff series. I wouldn't bet on it, but at the same time, crazier things have happened, and these guys, as was evident today with Paul George being out, these guys sometimes just can't stay healthy. It's really tough down this stretch when here we are, we've already played 3 games, and we're going to play 3 games in 4 nights here pretty much already. Games go by really quick, and then playoffs happen, and you have to be available just about every night. Or no, you do need to be available every night, because you missing one game can completely turn around your season. And thankfully the Kings have been healthy. Domas had that illness. Definitely seems like he's coming back from it, or isn't isn't changed much by it. Maybe you could argue that him not being able to outmuscle Zubac today had a little bit to do with him losing some strength, but I think overall he's fine. De'Aaron hasn't, we know he talked about his shoulder, but he hasn't seemed to have that injury get in the way of him missing time. We'll see down the stretch how that is, but for the most part, everyone seems healthy. Kevin Herter definitely seems like he's rejuvenated after the break. He seems to just have a little bit of hop in his step. And I think when you're really inconsistent as a shooter, I think just stepping away for a little bit is really, really good. Just kind of as like a hard reset. Like, Sometimes you just need to unplug all the cords and everything and blow on it and all that stuff and then plug it back in. And sometimes that's really all you need. I've found many times that the good old fashioned unplug, blow in the hole, and then blow in the cord and plug it back in works like 90% of the time. So it's kind of can be the same way with shooters sometimes. Yeah, nice. Okay. Yeah, this is now three straight wins for the Kings, which is nice to see them picking it up from that Detroit game. That Detroit game still feels like it's a little bit present, but thankfully it's on the other side of the break. I think those are the exact kind of performances that hopefully we can draw a direct line where that Detroit game was really the last moment in which this team was messing around. After that, I know they lost the Suns, but to have that game, the last game before the break against Denver, felt like a good win. Um, yeah, looking at your guys' comments here. First off, yes, absolutely. Hit the thumbs up. Domas's dunk was a great one, Nick Town. Absolutely. I didn't see where the tech came from. Did they ever specify where the tech came from? Because I kind of thought it might have been on our guy Mason Jones, who was just on his game today. Mason Jones was first team all cheer. Shout out to anyone who's watched Cheer on Netflix. 10 out of 10 show. It's a 10 out of 10 show. I feel like Mason Jones definitely, no disrespect at all. Like I said, I saw him down in Stockton. Looks really solid. I think he'd be an interesting point guard experiment for this team. Maybe not now, but just down the line. But if things don't work out for him, he should look in. Well, I guess he already missed his time, but he could have been a great cheerleader, is what I'm saying. Because that man's energy is insane. He's got incredible energy off the bench. Um, but yeah, I never saw what that tech was for officially. I didn't see if it was Domas for yelling. Didn't see if it was Malik. Because I think on the broadcast they said it was Malik because Malik, I don't know, Malik was like on the sideline, looked like he was going to check in. So I don't know. Then again, that was Bob Myers who said that, so take that with a grain of salt. Um, but yeah, I never saw. And then De'Aaron's tech too was super interesting. I mean, not interesting in the fact that I don't know why they called it. I think I've talked about this before, but if you watch De'Aaron enough, you pick up that he really only gets upset about foul calls. That's it. Like you can talk crap with him, you can whatever. You can say your team's whack, you can rock the baby on him, whatever. He doesn't care. What gets under his skin for whatever reason is when not for whatever reason, but uh the thing that gets under his skin the most 100% of the time, he will argue with you about a foul. If you say I didn't touch him or what are you talking about or De'Aaron thinks you fouled him, and it's that's a first surefire way for him to get upset. And so when he feels like guys are getting preferential treatment or he gets a bad whistle, like today, he just kind of felt like James was getting a soft whistle and felt like Harden was initiating a lot of contact that sent De'Aaron, I think, pretty much to the stanchion. And you just kind of saw him throw his hand. Just kind of felt like he took off after that, but definitely deserved that tech for De'Aaron. But just thought it was a just thought it was an interesting moment that it ended up sparking him. And I think that stretch of play, like I said earlier, was some of the best we've ever seen from De'Aaron. And yeah, that dunk that Domas had was ridiculous. Seeing here where to go. What do I think of Trey Lyles at the 5? I've talked about it in the past. Trey Lyles at the 5 makes sense to me, but honestly, one, he's not playing great right now. That's not going to help. but two, it's I it, I think Alex Len. It's really depends on matchups. Really is the short answer, but I think that they feel like, and it was talked a lot about on ESPN today. Actually, um, they know they have a rim protection problem, and they're gonna try and solve it. Like they're gonna try and or not solve it, but maybe band aid it. And Alex Len and JaVale are the easiest answers for that. I think what might end up happening by the end of the year is that they realize that they just might not be able to solve that problem. And instead, you really don't lose that much with Trey at the five. I don't know if Trey's going to, I don't think Trey Lyles is going to get in the starting lineup, but I just think in general, you'll probably see more at Trey at the stretch five after all options have been exhausted. It makes a lot of sense. Trey's a good rebounder. He's got a strong build to him, and it's definitely it's a fast lineup. Like it makes a lot of sense for what the Kings like to do. I don't know if they should close with it at any point, but it's definitely a lineup that I think they're very comfortable going to. I just think that also there's a bit of gamesmanship too, where you might not want to show that. Maybe they practice with it a lot. Maybe they've seen enough of it in game to know that they don't really need to practice a lot with it because the pieces just kind of make so much sense. But my guess would just be that we see more of it down the stretch in general. Yes, and as Brother Fab says, Trey Lyles was bad though. He has not been good since the All Star break, but I think I think he's going to bounce back. It seems like he, I think he had an injury that he's coming back from as well. Yeah, and was Tech was on the bench. Everyone's saying Tech was on the entire bench, which I think I've heard of before, for sure. But because I guess that would be them coming out on the floor too far, which I have seen before, but I don't think I've seen it from this Kings team. So I guess that's a tech that you'll just have to accept and have to swallow because it means that you guys have A1 chemistry, and it does feel like they have definitely improved their chemistry quite a bit here recently. So I guess I'll take that. I'll take that tech on the entire bench. Someone's got to pay for it though. That's my question: is who pays for it? Someone's got to. It's got to go to somebody. It was super weak. A lot Bob Myers. The Bob Myers comments are hilarious. He was really bad. I don't think he's ever done an NBA game before, so I kind of want to give him some grace, but kind of felt like he was trying to stay in the background, didn't really want to talk too much, but then like wasn't sure exactly how to do the ins and outs, like how to, what exactly to say and how much time to say it, which is totally natural because he's a GM. Like he is not a broadcaster. He has never done broadcast before. That's probably the first time he's ever had the headset on for longer than a 15-minute summer league interview. So I don't really blame him for sucking. It's just wild that ESPN, frankly, is at the point that they had him on the broadcast. Don't really know what went into that decision. Don't know if it's because I don't know if we can blame Doc Rivers for this somehow, because maybe if he didn't take the job, we would have had somebody who got elevated on that game instead. But yeah, don't have Bob Myers on a Kings game. That didn't make any sense at all. Don't also know why why the ESPN wouldn't just put Mark Jones on that game since they know he already has all the information on that team. But whatever, whatever. That's for that four-letter network to decide. Yes. This is definitely, do you guys feel like this is in contention for win of the year? I definitely feel like this is up there for sure. I think the Orlando double overtime game is up there for me. Um it doesn't look as good now, but Memphis on New Year's Day is up there for me. Or New Year's Eve is up there. Uh, the Timberwolves win is up there for me, but I feel like this might be it. This is definitely, I just think the biggest prover. Like this is definitely the win that I'm going to use, much like last year. Honestly, this is the win I'm gonna look back on and say, okay, I saw it that night. And if they can do it that night, if they can do what they did that night tonight, then they've got a chance. So this is a dangerous one. This is essentially one that gives me hope, is what I'm saying, which is a scary, scary thought for me with this team because there's been too many times where I've had hope, and this franchise has let me down one too many times. So fool me once, I guess, but this is definitely a hope builder for this team, and um, you know, I think that's good. I think that's good. Question mark. I think that's important. But it's definitely also one that uh, is going to make the eventual. They're going to lose eventually, and it's gonna be a sobering one. But you can start to feel the momentum build. Again, they are now the 5 seed. It's not completely out of the question for them to maybe slip into that top 4, maybe get a home court advantage in a series. It's not crazy. Crazier things have happened. Teams get injured, teams get hot. The Kings all I'm going to say is they have multiple opportunities directly in front of them to show us exactly who they are. And if they are who they were tonight, then this thing is going to be really, really fun down the stretch because momentum's a real thing. And crazier things have happened. I think that this team has the bones, they have the chemistry. They have not peaked yet, that's for sure. That is definitely one thing I think we can all say for certain is this team has not at any point looked like for a stretch of time that they are playing their absolute best basketball, and it might not get better than this. I think I think maybe you could argue it's starting to happen now, but my bigger point is there is time for it, and there seems to be no better time than now. And they're building. I'm not saying they're there yet, but again, this is one of those games that really uh, it's one of those games, man. It really just makes you think. It makes you wonder where this thing could eventually go. And also, with all the teams being so close, like it's not crazy to think that there might be a lot of upsets in this playoffs. So um, it's about staying healthy. It's about playing your best basketball at the right time, and it's about building momentum. And the Kings are starting to do that. 3 straight wins, 2 straight wins on the other side of the All Star break. Again, they play tomorrow against a downed Miami Heat team. You have to take advantage of it. You just do. Miami's traveled a long way. They don't have their best player. Kings are coming off a great win. I think they were in a similar situation, actually, funny enough, last year where they did have to play after the Clipper game and got the result as well. So just got to stay focused. Just really got to stay focused and make sure that you take it one game at a time. I know, we can talk a lot about the fact that they have Denver and Minnesota on the other side of this thing, but the Kings just they honestly shouldn't even pay attention to where they have to go next. Pay attention night by night, and you just got to grit these things out. They might not look pretty, but man, at the same time, doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Whether I think I said this, I think I literally said it after the Spurs game. Every night is its own night. Like just because they lost or they beat the Spurs by 5 did not mean anything for tonight. They still handled the much better team and beat them by a much wider margin. So, you got to take that to just show you that it takes a massive effort every single game. Every single game. And we as fans can't lose sight of that, and especially the players can't lose sight of it. That's going to wrap things up. 3 stars of the night really, really quickly because I do have to get to dinner. um, uh, First and foremost, first star of the night going to HB. I Let me pull up his final stats. I believe HB had 21 points, if I'm not mistaken. 21 points for HB. He got to the free throw line a couple times tonight, which is really good to see for him. Knocked down 4 threes, and was overall just consistent throughout the game. Just consistently poured it on quarter after quarter. And when you're going against Kawhi Leonard, you're going to need to at least have some production out of your forwards. Thankfully, they didn't have Paul George tonight, but it was good of HB to kind of take advantage of that. He just kind of continues to be uh, inconsistent, but what I will say is when he plays well, the Kings generally seem to also play well as a team. And Harrison Barnes' best games, those are usually the best offensive performances from the Kings as well. So if they can get him going, it's just a really good sign for the team on that night. And if you can get him playing consistently, I mean, you see that he can be a factor if he just kind of is aggressive enough. And um, it's just really big for HB to be involved in the playoffs. He really wasn't involved much at all last year. And we saw him honestly play better in the regular season last year than he has this year. But hopefully that means that this year he's got a little bit more in the tank, because we've just seen the second half of the season just a little bit more of a load for HB. So great game for him tonight. I almost want to give him 2 stars, but I'm going to give it to Domas instead. 17 points, 15 boards, 12 assists, 3 steals for him, only 1 turnover, 7 offensive rebounds, which is insane. I'm going to talk about the bunnies again. It's a thing. It's definitely a thing. If you watch enough Sabonis, it's it's such a strange thing to complain about, because if you just look at the numbers, he's top 5 usually. I don't know exactly where he is this year, but he's usually at least in the top 10 in field goal percentage, always 60% or more. Let me see if I can even quickly check what his field goal percentage is. But anyways, I mean, he just has a tendency to miss the easiest layups. Like, it's really frustrating. Sabonis is 7th right now in overall field goal percentage. He hits 62% of his shots. But he misses layups that are right there, and I have no idea why. He's done it for a long time, but tonight it was really bad. He airballed a couple hook shots. There was a couple times where he tried to kind of shoulder into Zubac. Didn't work at all. Didn't move him. He just kind of threw up some garbage. It's just kind of part of his game. It's fine. You hope that there's not going to be a moment where you really need him to hit a bunny. I would think that he's focused enough to maybe concentrate for a big moment, but you never know. It just is one of those things where it's just kind of like a trait that somebody has. Is just like, sometimes they don't try to. Obviously, he's not. It's not that he's bad or anything. It's just sometimes he misses really easy layups, and there's not much explanation to it. But you got to take it. He was 7 of 17 tonight. He's never that bad, field goal percentage wise. But he was tonight, and thankfully it didn't end up killing him. He got a ton of rebounds for it, but definitely wasn't the it just wasn't the best Sabonis game. It was fine. It was good for national TV to see that maybe even on a night where his shot isn't falling, he still gets a triple double, still has crazy impact. But that's definitely the part of his game where he kind of lacked tonight. And De'Aaron Fox, honestly, all I remember is De'Aaron Fox just kind of taking over in that fourth quarter. He finished with 33 points, 7 assists for him. Great night, 3 steals, 9 of 10 from the free throw line. We talked about that the other night, how, a lot of these high volume guys get to the line a ton and they'll hit 11 or 12 free throws. And I was afraid that even if De'Aaron got to the line 10 times, he would miss, 4 or 5 of them. Show tonight, 9 to 10. That's great. And he had 33. I'm glad he had 30 plus because of it. Um, this is the De'Aaron Fox that we need to see. Most importantly, on the defensive end, his ball pressure. Just he's definitely earned the nickname "Swipe of the Fox." I had kind of questioned, I guess, if Swipa was really appropriate because he used to get steals, but it was never like he was leading the NBA in steals or anything like that. I believe since 2024 has started, De'Aaron Fox is leading the NBA in steals. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander did used to have a huge lead on them. I think De'Aaron's like half a steal a game away or something like that. But De'Aaron is now officially Swipe of the Fox. Not that he ever officially wasn't, but incredible. It's great to see him committing on both sides of the ball. It's been something that's been talked about with him and his game for a really long time. Really, Luke Walton was even talking about it. I mean, I feel like Dave Yeager was probably talking about De'Aaron and his two-way ability, but now you're really seeing it functionally affect games, and him just kind of locking in and having those almost like when you play NBA Street and you get a game breaker and you just kind of the music starts playing and all your moves are just unstoppable. When he goes into those game breaker modes, that's when it's just this is he's that's where he elevates his star. That's where you know much like that's kind of been talked about with Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, where he just kind of goes to a different level than he is in the regular season. That's kind of like those moments that De'Aaron has in games. They're like game breaker moments where he's like, all right, for this next 3 minutes, like, I'm going to play like a top 5 player, top 10 player in the NBA. And I think that's what's so exciting for coaches about, having De'Aaron there is you're like, if I can if I can just make those minutes longer than 2 minute stretches. But it's exciting to see. And I think that's why, so many coaches have said this guy's the head of the snake. This team goes as far as he goes or he takes us is because he just has so many moments like that. So that is going to wrap it up for me tonight. Appreciate everybody hopping in. There's been a ton of people in here tonight. Really appreciate it. We're going to hop on tomorrow as well, live from Golden One Center. So if you're not doing anything after the game tomorrow, please feel free to hop on and we can have a chat and talk some Kings basketball. So that'll be tomorrow after the game. You can also join or hear me before the game from 10 to 2 on Styles and Watkins, also right here on Sactown Sports 1140. Y'all have a fantastic night, and let's go check out that beam. Bye-bye.